corridors of the palace, once corridors of infinite peace, now exhaled a cold, rhythmic thunder. From the blinding white mists of the periphery, the angel guards emerged. They did not walk. They glided with a synchronized mechanical grace that made the heart stutter. Each was a towering silhouette of silver and pale blood, their faces obscured by masks of smooth, featureless crystal. In their hands, they carried lances of condensing law, weapons that didn't cut flesh, but severed the connection between the soul and its spirit. They formed a semicircle around the throne, their presence causing the very air to crystallize like jagged polyphonic unison that vibrated through the marrow of Coco's teeth. Target identified. The sound of Sanyoku established sentenced to war action. Goku stood his ground against the plates of his dragon scale armor, the others in his hand. The jagged arc of target 01 pulsed with a searing white light. It wasn't just a mark of shade, it was a gun. He could feel behind the law tracking his every cell, calculating the exact moment to strike. Underneath the panic of the palace, Goku felt a strange, terrifying calm. The dragon seed was no longer just a source of power. It was becoming his vengeance. It was because these guards weren't literally decent. They were the walls of the cage. And to free the bird, one had to break the walls. You're not going to touch him, Goku said, his voice dropping into a low, predatory growl. He didn't look at the guards, he looked at the Grand Priest, who made the crush behind Zeno like a vulture made of life. The first guard stepped forward, its lance flickering with the violent energy of erasure. With a movement too fast for mortalized to track, it thrust the weapon toward Goku's heart. In any other form, Goku might have dodged or blocked with a Kai shield, but the dragon scale armor didn't react to the shield. As the tip of the lance touched the bronze scales, the armor didn't just stop the attack, it pierced the wall. A shockwave of blood sparks erupted, and the angelic lance, a weapon designed to delete the universe, shattered like cheap glass. The faceless mask of the guard tilted, a flicker of something resembling confusion passing through its stack of blood. It had never encountered a substance that refused to be defined by its edge. My turn, Goku whispered. He didn't give us a command here. He didn't give us a strong he had learned from the master. He simply executed. With that breath, the dragon seed sent a wave of raw, unrefined flame through his limbs. He swung his fist, and the air itself seemed to scream in protest. The potent just the guardian unraveled. The silver armor of the executioner dissolved into a cloud of meaningless data. The soul within returned to the great white void for which it was formed. The Grand Priest's eyes narrowed. The scratch on his palm glowing with renewed and angry flint. You were breaking the tools of creation, Goku. Every guard you destroys a holy words because you truly wish them to move on. If the order means Zeno has to cry in silence, Goku replied, stepping over the shimmering dust of the fallen guard, then let it roll. As the 199 guards approached the lances, the fire of Goku's hand suddenly flared with a new terrifying frequency. He began showing visions. Out of the fight of the earth, he saw the peaceful fields around Bowser, he saw Chi-Chi water. He saw Goku looking up the sky that was beginning to turn simply golden. The Grand wasn't just trying to he was leading its execution to the lives of those in front. The sacrilege of contact was complete. Goku was no longer just fighting for the king. He was fighting against a hand that had decided that if it could not win the dragon, it would burn the dragon's nest to the ground. The Grand Priest did not move to strike. He simply watched, his hands once again clasped behind his back, as the shimmering dust of his elite guards drifted through the air like the remains of burning prayer. There was no anger in his expression, only a deep, weary disappointment. geometric patterns beneath the stride. I built this silence. I designed the peace that you have enjoyed for so long. The king of all is not a friend, Coco. He is a function. He is the eraser at the end of the pencil. Without the chains of authority to guide his hand, he is nothing but a storm without a sail. He wished to frame the hurricane. He wished to give a child the power to bleed away entire civilizations because he had a dream. The priest stopped, leaning him close, his pale face reflecting the polished bronze of Coco's chest plates. His smile was thin, mere line of cold dignity. Your friendship is the most selfish act of history for me. He treats even the trillions with a smile of one. Tell me something. Is that justice? Or is that just your blood craving chaos without news? Coco's breathing was careful. The dragon seemed close, and even hot throb against the priest's cold logic. He could feel the weight of the words. They weren't just insults, they were mental traps designed to make his will falter. The Grand Priest was the architect of reality, and he was trying to build a cage under Coco's own conscience. But the dragon within Coco didn't care about functions or equations, it only cared about the harmony. You're wrong, Coco rasped, his eyes glowing with a deep, dangerous promise. Xena was an pencil, he's not a storm, he's Xena. And if the old way your piece works is by turning it into a ghost, then your piece is alive. The Grand Priest sighed, smiling.
You already know Dragon Ball is going to be epic in May 2026. A lot of us fans like to call it the year of Dragon Ball. It's going to be happy ends. January, it's not going to be very much.
Then you are beyond reason. You chose the instinct of the beast over the wisdom of the law. Very well. Let us see how your will holds up against the very definitions of the space you occupy. With a sudden sharp motion, the priest snapped his fingers. The throne didn't just change, it inverted. The white marble floor became a ceiling of glass, and the beautiful rafters of the palace dissolved into a sea of burning, golden text. Coco felt its gravity shift, not once but 100 times a second. Up became down, left became a memory, and his very sense of balance was torn from his mind. The disorientation was not merely physical, it was semantic. Coco felt his very identity being shredded by the Grand Priest's vague definitions. In one moment, the air he breathed was turned into the concept of hate, making every lungful feel like swallowing jagged glass. The next, the distance between his fist and the priest's face was redefined as infinite, so that no matter how fast he moved, he remained frozen in a state of eternal approach. The Grand Priest stood in the center of the swarm of chaos, untouched and unmoving, a fixed point in a world that was actively deconstructing. You see, son Goku, you are fighting with your muscles, but I am fighting with the alphabet. I am the one who decides what a punch means. I am the one who decides that he is the only about to the sound slowly pressing out of silence the priest who his arms locked. He swung an heavy armored leg. The priest simply adjusted a single line of light in the air, and the force of Goku's own strike was redirected back into his own limbs. The dragon scale worm grew into sparks of bronze light flying as it absorbed the glow that should have shattered the planet. You are a creature of cause and effect. The priest continued, his voice now sounding like a choir of 1,000 bells. I am the cause. You are merely the effect. To rebel against me is to rebel against the fact that 1 + 1 = 2. The priest raised his hand, and the golden text from the walls began to swarm around Goku like a hive of incandescent hornets. parts of his armor turning from light into heavy leaden shackles that dragged Goku toward the shifting liquid floor. Goku's vision blurred. The dragon seed in his chest was no longer just a warmth. It was a frantic, burning cold. It was being suffocated by the sheer weight of the definitions being forced upon it. He could see Zeno, still trapped, still frozen, just a few feet away. Yet the Grand Priest had defined that space as unreachable. To the system of heaven, the path to the king was a mathematical impossibility for a mortal. Look at your hands, Seiya. The priest mocked, his eyes glowing with a terrifying clinical light. They are becoming the very marble you tread upon. The law does not hate you, it simply has no room for you. You are a rounding error that I am finally correcting. Goku looked down. The bronze scales on his forearms were indeed beginning to turn a dull, lifeless gray. The Grand Priest's mockery wasn't just verbal. It was a physical erosion of his will. For the first time since the morning, Goku felt the icy touch of genuine doubt. How do you fight the person who writes the rules of the fight? How do you strike a man and turn their intent into a question? But then from the deepest part of the spirit, deeper than the same pride, deeper than the years of training, the dragon voice whispered again. He didn't offer a technique, he didn't offer a power level, he offered a truth. Law is only a cage for those who believe in the bars. The dragon seed didn't flare this time, it went still. A cold, absolute stillness that matched the silence of the void. Goku's breathing slowed. He stopped fighting the shift in gravity. He stopped trying to find his way to the distance. He simply closed his eyes and listened to the heartbeat of the dragon seed. The heartbeat that had existed before the first ball was ever whispered. The Grand Priest watched as the gray, lifeless marble reached Goku's throat. He expected a plea. He expected the desperate, flailing energy of a cornered animal. Instead, he found a silence that rivaled his own. The stillness so profound he felt as though somehow instantly ceased to be shadows and Mouth Shallow began to tremble. They were lashed onto Goku's skin, vibrating in an attempt to crush him, but they were no longer finding purchase. It was as if the definition of Goku was changing from solid matter to something elemental, something that could not be grasped in grammar or geometry. You speak of your laws as if they are the bones of the world, Goku said. His voice was no longer his own. It carried the resonance of 1,000 ancient canyons and a deep timbered growl that made the liquid glass ceiling of the palace ripple. When a dragon doesn't care about the name of the wind, it just flies. Goku opened his eyes. The iris was gone, replaced by a swirling nebula of molten bronze and abyssal black. The dragon seed in his chest didn't just pulse, it exhaled. A wave of primal ki, the original unrefined breath of the cosmos, surged outward. It didn't strike the cold text, it ignored it. The laws of the Grand Priest, the definitions of distance and pain, simply slid off Goku's body like rain off a wing. The gray marble corruption didn't just break, it operated at a training speed of will that refused to be categorized. Goku took a step. The Grand Priest's brow furrowed. He flicked his wrist, instantly redefining the 3 feet of floor in front of Goku as the heart of a star. The marble should have turned into a localized supernova, vaporizing anything in its path. But as Goku's foot landed, the marble remained cool, white, and silent. Goku wasn't countering the priest's magic, he was simply existing in a state where that magic was irrelevant. Impossible. The priest whispered, the word escaping his lips before he could catch it. You are within the palace. You are under my jurisdiction. I have defined the gravity, the light, the very air. Then your definitions are wrong, Goku interrupted. He was moving now, his pace slow and deliberate. Each step he took sent a shockwave of bronze light through the floor.
I Arjun, welcome to your new home. It changed you with the right advisor. They're going to be by your side for a long time.
seen other people stop smoking. I wanted that. I made a plan and I smoked my own.
Reality wasn't supposed to tear like this. Goku's fingers pressed against his forehead, heat surging through every cell as he locked onto King Kai's energy signature across the galaxy. One moment, he stood on Beerus's planet after another. There are whispers, stories too fast for world, echoes too divine for gods to comprehend. They speak of warriors who transcend mortality, so real and yet sung by the cosmos itself. In the beginning, he was but a man who sought strength. In the end, he became the strength that sought itself. This is the legend of Son Goku, who surpassed gods, surpassed angels, and reached the thousand pulse of ultra instinct, with thought and being resolved into pure creation. Before we walk into this boundless realm of light and silence, remember to remain part of the journey, so that our own souls may never vanish into the forgotten timelines. Subscribe to the path of power and let destiny walk with you. The sky above Earth was clear that morning. A silence so deep it felt as though even the gods were listening. On the edge of our council, he sat cross-legged, his eyes closed, lying still, yet the air around him. Bronze light through the floor, cracking the Grand Priest's perfect geometry. The dragon scale armor on his shoulders began to glow with a dull internal heat, looking less like a suit of mail, more like the skin of a god. Goku reached the edge of the infinite distance the priest had placed around the throne. The sound did not explode, nor was it the roar of a collapsing storm. It was a mark that pushed out a sound so absolute, so violent, that it vibrated in the marrow inside Goku's bones. Stood held. The void was not empty. It was trembling. It wasn't the trembling of fear, nor the aftershocks of the Tournament of Power's violent conclusion. It was the shivering of reality itself, bending under the weight of a presence too vast to be comprehended by mortal eyes. Super Shenron, the golden dragon of the gods, coiled through the dark expanse, his scales spanning galaxies, his eyes burning like twin suns against the nothingness. Son Goku stood upon a singular floating fragment of the arena, his body broken, his ki tattered, yet his spirit burning with that familiar stubborn exhaustion. He had won. Android 17 had made the wish. The universes were returning. But as the Grand Priest spoke the final dialect of the gods to dismiss the beast, something ancient snapped, a fracture in the ritual. A single drop of the golden dragon's essence, pure, unadulterated creative force, did not dissipate into the cosmos. It fell, a heavy, molten teardrop of emerald and gold light, dripping from the dragon's jaw. It did not hit the floor. It sought a vessel. It sought the one creature in the multiverse whose container was shattered enough, whose limits were broken enough to receive it. It struck Goku's chest. There was no scream. There was only a sound like a bell tolling at the end of time. Goku's eyes rolled back. The silver of Ultra Instinct forcibly bled out by a torrential, primordial green. His back arched, vertebrae cracking under the pressure of a star collapsing. For a moment, the Omni Kings stopped their cheering. The Grand Priest froze. Beerus stood up, his face drained of color, whispering a single word that no destroyer should ever have to speak in fear. Salama, this is not merely a new form. This is the rewriting of a soul. To ensure you witness the path where the Saiyan transcends the hierarchy of angels and enters the domain of the creators. Anchor your presence here. Like the video and bind yourself to this timeline before it fades into myth. The light of the Super Dragon did not fade gently. It retracted with the violence of a collapsing star, folding itself back into the golden spheres that hovered like silent judges over the void. The wish had been made. The erasure was undone. The multiverse breathed again, a collective gasp of trillions of lives pulled back from the precipice of non-existence. But amidst the jubilation, Amidst the cheers of the Omni Kings that echoed like wind chimes in a hurricane,
Paris'in
a singular, terrifying silence was glooming in the center of the shattered arena. Son Goku lay on his back, staring up at the purple abyss of the world of void. He should have been unconscious. He should have been drained. His body a hollow shell after the ravages of Ultra Instinct, the brutal war of attrition
You
against
guys are really
tyranny.
fucking. You guys should have read him, man.
He was overflowing.
What the
The
fuck?
sensation was not pain, at least not in the
Why
way
did you
words
guys
or
rest?
elastic key inflicted pain. It was heavy. It was the sensation of the ocean trying to fit inside of them. That singular drop of molten emerald, the runoff of Zama's essence, had burrowed past his skin, past his muscle,
Nice one.
and fused directly into the core of his spirit. It felt ancient. It felt like the ground beneath the feet of the gods. Goku clutched his chest, his fingers digging into his tattered knee, his knuckles white. He tried to breathe, but the air
Damn it.
tasted like metal and ozone. Kakarot. The voice was distant, filtered through a ringing in Goku's ears that sounded like a choir
Oh,
of
he
deep
does
resonant
it.
bells. Vegeta stood over him, his old body battered, one eye swollen shut. The prince reached out a hand, expecting the usual grin, the usual idiocy of his rival, laughing off a near-death experience. But Goku did not take the hand. He didn't even see it. Goku's eyes were wide.
Itachi will get his raise on the road, man.
His pupils, usually stark black, were trembling, rimmed by a thin, flickering corona of green light. It was a shade of green that Vegeta had never seen, not the artificial teal of a blast, nor the legendary lime of the Berserker form. This was the green of deep jade, the color of things that grow in the dark. Don't touch him! The command cracked like a whip. Beerus, the god of destruction, landed beside him, his boots skidding on the rubble. His fur was bristling, his ears pinned back against his skull. There was no trace of his usual lethargic arrogance. He looked at Goku not with concern, but with the primal wariness of a predator spotting a larger beast in the brush. Lord Beerus? Vegeta withdrew his hand, confused by the
Left side,
genuine
left side,
of the
left side.
destroyer's voice. It's just
Counter,
exhaustion.
clockwise.
He overdid it with that silver form again.
Counter, clockwise.
That is an exhaustion, Beerus hissed, his tail twitching.
His yours, man.
Step back, Vegeta. Step back now. Which
I got
descended
it.
from the floating spectator stands, his staff tapping gently against the stone. The angel's face remained
Yeah, I got it.
composed, but his eyes usually filled with whimsical amusement
Oh,
narrowed as they
damn.
swept over Goku's convulsing form. He sensed it immediately. The signature was faint, buried under the layers of mortal exhaustion, but it was unmistakable to an angel. It was the hum of the super dragon
So-
voice. It was the resonance of the creator. Oh my, Whis murmured, the sound barely audible over the ambient rumble of the void. It seems our victory has come.
You're using posterity, man. What is that? I can
Goku gasped, his back arching violently off the ground. A
posterity.
pulse of energy, heavy, dense, and suffocating, erupted from his chest. It didn't explode outward, it pressed downward, crushing the
Damn.
rock beneath him into fine dust. The gravity around them multiplied instantly. Vegeta's knees buckled. Even Beerus felt the tug, his feet sinking inches into the stone. It wasn't the sharp, piercing pressure of God, King. It was the crushing weight of existence itself. Goku! Krillin's voice cried out from the distance, but it sounded like he was shouting from underwater. Goku couldn't answer. Inside him, the landscape of his soul was being rewritten. He tried to reach for his own energy, to find the
Left side,
familiar
left
warmth
side.
of his ki,
No.
but it was gone. Or rather, it was being eaten. The golden droplet was a parasite, absolute power, consuming his mortal energy and replacing it with something colder, sharper, and infinitely more potent. He felt as though
Special
he was
rotate,
swallowing
rotate,
the
right
sun. Is this dying?
Side.
Goku thought, the words fracturing in his mind.
Left.
No,
Counter,
this is quiet. This is loud.
left side.
He forced his head to turn, locking
Nice.
eyes with Whis. He wanted to ask for help, to ask what was happening, but when he opened his mouth,
Left side.
no sound came out, only a low, guttural vibration that shook the dust around them. It sounded like the growl of a beast waking up from a billion-year slumber. We must leave, Whis said, his voice cutting through the tension. Now, the Grand Priest is preparing to close the void. If Goku remains here in this state, resonating with the residual energy of the ritual, he He might very well tear the fabric of the dimension apart. Tear it apart?
Got him.
Vegeta grit his teeth, fighting the gravity to stand upright. He can barely move.
Left
He
side.
isn't doing
Tag.
it. Beerus muttered, sweat beading on his forehead as he watched the green
Tag
light
42.
beneath Goku's skin. It's doing it to him.
Left side, left side, left side. Right there, right there, right there, right there.
If
Right
he
there.
explodes here, he takes us all with him.
Nice.
The journey back to Universe 7 was a blur, warped light, and terrified silence. Usually, the cube was a place of chatter, of Bulma asking questions and Trunks boasting of victory. But now,
Nice one.
the Z fighters huddled at the edges of the
5
transparent
seconds.
vessel, giving a wide berth to the center where Goku lay. He was shivering. Steam rose from his skin, smelling of sulfur and ancient stone. Whis sat cross-legged beside him, his staff hovering over Goku's chest, weaving a barrier of temporal energy to dampen the output.
Right side, right side, right side.
Goku's barrier, the pressure leaked out. It made the air
Huh?
inside the cube taste metallic. It made Piccolo's antennae twitch uncontrollably. It made the hairs on the back of Gohan's neck stand up, triggering a primal flight response that the Half Saiyan couldn't suppress. They were bringing the champion home. But as the stars of Universe 7 came into view, swirling in their familiar patterns, no one felt like they were
Super
carrying
opinionated.
a hero. They felt like they were transporting a bomb, and the timer was ticking
So far,
down in
he's
a
the
language
monster.
none of them could understand. The descent to Earth was silent. The cube dissolved into the manicured lawns of Capsule Corporation, the shimmering barrier fading to reveal the soft,
Nice 6 to
familiar
super.
blues of a West City afternoon. The air smelled of cut grass, and the distant salt of the ocean sense that usually triggered a ravenous hunger in Goku, a signal that the fighting was done and the feasting could begin. But today,
Nice.
the scent of Earth made him nauseous. It felt thin.
Oh, let's take on.
Breathing through a straw. Bulma was there before they even touched the
This
ground.
is super.
Her face a
Yeah, Titan
mask
Smash.
that shattered the moment she saw the group's somber procession. She stopped shouting orders at the chefs and froze.
Good
There
chance.
was no victory pose. There were no thumbs up. There was only Piccolo and Vegeta, struggling to support Goku's weight between them. Their leaves sinking inches deep into the pristine soil of Nephros.
Oh,
What happened?
wait.
Bulma whispered, her hands flying to her mouth. He won, didn't he? Android 17.
To refresh the stream.
He won.
Crash.
Vegeta grunted, the veins in his neck bulging as he adjusted his grip on Goku's arm. But he didn't come back empty-handed. They lowered Goku onto a weighty metal
Nice.
stretcher, but the
Hey,
metal
what's
frame
Superman?
groaned in protest, buckling slightly in the center.
Right there, right there,
It
right
wasn't
there.
that Goku
Right there,
had
right there.
physical mass. It was his presence. The
Oh,
density of his existence had spiked. It was as if a dwarf star had been wrapped in Saiyan skin and dropped onto the lawn.
Super
Goku
Saiyan.
stared up at the sky. It looked like paper to him now, fragile, terrible paper stretched over a void of infinite gold. He blinked, trying to clear the hallucination, but the image persisted.
Oh,
It was
fuck.
not just
Pretty
sitting in his
crashed on me.
chest, it was rewiring his optic nerves, forcing him to perceive reality through the lens of a creator, not
Two
a mortal.
rockets.
He saw the structural
Tree.
weaknesses in the atoms of the air. He saw the inevitable decay of the buildings around him. Get him
What's that?
inside, Whis instructed, his tone lacking its usual playfulness. Do not use the standard medical machines. They will explode. Just place him somewhere quiet. Somewhere
The left side.
sturdy. They moved into
Counter, counter, counter. Behind, behind, behind.
the only room in Capsule Corp reinforced enough
Oh,
to handle the
man.
passive pressure
I need
radiating from his body. As
That
the
need
last
a-
force is achieved, sealing Goku inside the stark white silence. The Z fighters let out a collective breath they hadn't realized they were holding. Outside
The more that, that's a good one.
Vegeta leaned against the wall, arms crossed, staring at the digital readout on the door. The sensors were going haywire, flashing error messages about undefined energy signatures. Weeks,
Special.
Vegeta said, his voice low. What did you mean
Got
by
him.
unforeseen attacks? What is inside him?
That's
Whis
what it
tapped
says.
his staff
Good.
on the floor,
First, I'm gonna get res.
pensively at the sealed door.
First, I'm gonna get the res.
You saw the
Thank you.
golden dragons among them. He is not a fighter.
Outside.
He is a fundamental constant of the multiverse. He is the weave of reality itself. When the wish was granted, the connection remained open for a fraction of a microsecond too long. The angel turned to face the Prince of Saiyans, his violet eyes serious. Goku has absorbed a fragment of the dragon's creative
Counter, counter. Left side, left side, left side.
create stars, designs galaxies, and breathes life into
Schön,
dust.
schön.
It is not meant for a warrior.
Alright.
It has no concept of fight.
Schön.
It only knows being. And right now, that absolute state of being is conflicting with Goku's mortal limitations. Will it kill him? Krillin asked, stepping forward, his voice trembling. It is trying to expand him. He's correct. To
Okay.
make room for itself. The vessel must grow, or it will shatter. If Goku cannot
Middle, middle,
harness
middle.
his Saiyan instinct for
Who is up
battle
in
with
there?
the dragon's instinct
What's
for dominion, yes, it will burn him into nothing.
I saw it.
Inside
Nice.
the chamber, Goku lay on the floor.
Nice, nice.
He couldn't stand. The gravity was set to 1 G, but it felt like 500. He closed his eyes.
Yeah, get the
seeking
Marlins.
the darkness of sleep. There was no darkness. There was only a
no.
golden void.
Fuck.
And in that void, he heard the first whisper. It wasn't a voice speaking Japanese. It was a vibration in his marrow, a concept translating itself into thought. Little vessel, the resonance hummed, feeling like magma moving through his veins. Why do you struggle? Why do you cling to the smallness? Goku gritted his teeth, sweat pooling beneath him. Son Goku, he gasped, forcing the words out into the empty room. A Saiyan from Earth. The energy surged.
Oh, I think
A
it.
spike of emerald heat that made his back arch off the floor. The gold aura flickered around him, dense and jagged, cracking the reinforced tiles of the gravity chamber floor without touching them. You were, the whisper corrected, sounding amused and terrifyingly ancient. But the container is broken. The walls are down. You are the chosen. Stop fighting the current, Saiyan. Become the ocean. Goku screamed. It was a silent, strangled scream as the energy flooded his nervous system, washing away the fatigue of the tournament and replacing it with a terrifying, boundless energy that felt like it would never run out. He wasn't healing. He was evolving. And he was terrified that by the time this meeting broke, the man named Son Goku would no longer exist. 3 days passed. 3 days when the sun rose and set over West City, but the lights in the capsule core gravity chamber never dimmed. The sensors on the exterior panel had long since burned out, the delicate circuitry fused by the electromagnetic radiation pouring through the blast doors. Vegeta stood vigil. He hadn't slept, hadn't trained. He merely stood in the hallway, arms crossed, his key sense extended like a wire tripwire, waiting for the explosion. He could feel it, the slow, rhythmic thrumming from inside. It didn't feel like Kakarot. Kakarot's energy was a warm fire, chaotic but inviting. This felt like the cold pressure of the deep ocean. It was heavy. It was old. Inside, the gravity chamber was unrecognizable. Goku sat in the center of the room in a meditative lotus position. He was floating 3 feet off the ground, but there was no serenity in his posture. His muscles were pulled taut, veins bulging against his skin like steel cables. The floor beneath him was not just cracked, it was transmuted. The high-density tiles had turned into
Oh, my boy Dan's on right now.
glass-like substance, melted and reformed by the mere proximity of his aura. He opened his eyes.
Dan's on right now.
Left in them. The sclera had darkened into a deep twilight charcoal, and the irises were vertical slits of piercing,
This
luminescent emerald. For a moment, he didn't know where he was. The room looked small. The world looked fragile. He could hear the heartbeat of a bird 3 miles away. He could feel the tectonic plates of the earth grinding against each other deep below the crust. The sensory overload was absolute, yet he felt a strange, detached calm. Control. A whisper in his blood murmured. Order. Design. Quiet. Goku rasped. His voice had changed. It was deeper, layered with a subharmonic resonance that vibrated in the chest of anyone who heard it. He dropped to his feet. The landing was silent, yet the entire building shuddered. He looked at his hands. They were trembling, not from weakness, but from the containment of too much strength. He tried to summon his ki, to tap into Super Saiyan Blue,
Oh,
to
God,
find that
no, this
familiar
one.
divine tranquility. He pushed. Instead of the calming blue wash of godly care, a jagged spark of gold lightning erupted from his shoulder. It lashed out, striking the gravity machine's console. There was no explosion, no fire. The console simply vanished. It was erased from existence, leaving a perfectly smooth, spherical void in the wall.
Cool, the touches on your team too.
Space, horror dawning on his alien face. He hadn't blasted the energy had obeyed. This isn't right,
Real.
he whispered, clutching his wrist. This isn't me. The glass doors hissed open, forced manually from the outside. Vegeta stood there, silhouetted by the hallway light. He took one look at Goku in the dark eyes.
What's that? What's
The
that?
floating hair that shimmered between black and gold,
Oh.
the terrifying stillness of his presence, and his instinct screamed at him to run.
Fuck, man.
Kakarot, Vegeta said, his voice tight. You've been in here for 72 hours. Bulma is threatening to dismantle the building if you don't come out and eat. Goku turned slowly. The movement was liquid, unnatural. Vegeta, the name hung in the air, heavy and formal. Don't look at me like that!
Where did you guys
Vegeta
go?
snapped, stepping into the room, his pride overriding his fear. And power down. You're leaking energy everywhere. It's suffocating. I can't! Goku admitted. The emerald slit eyes widened slightly, a flicker of the old Goku breaking through the divine mask. It's not a form!
This guy's like, hey, no.
I can't turn it off.
Oh, he's one shot.
Flowing. It's like a river that
He's
wants
one
to.
shot.
Vegeta scowled. Nonsense! You're a Saiyan. You control your power.
Ten forward.
It does not control you. He clenched his fists, powering up into Super Saiyan.
What's that?
The golden aura flared, bright and defiant. If you can't shut it off, maybe you need to burn some Goku. Spar with it. It was a mistake. As Vegeta lunged, throwing a testing punch toward Goku's midsection, the air in the room crystallized. Goku didn't dodge. He didn't block. He simply looked at the
Ah,
fist,
fuck you.
and his body reacted without his consent.
That's all.
The dragon key flared. A shockwave of emerald light exploded from Goku's skin. It didn't push Vegeta away. It slammed him into the floor with the force of a falling moon. The gravity
You go here
of
with
the
the fuck.
instantly spiked to a level that shattered the reinforced walls. Vegeta gasped, pinned to the ground, his Super Saiyan form flickering out instantly. He couldn't breathe. The pressure was immense, absolute. It was the authority of a god commanding a mortal to kneel. Stop! Goku shouted. He wasn't talking to Vegeta. He was talking to the power inside him. He grabbed his own head, digging his fingers into his scalp. Stop it! Go! The pressure vanished as quickly as it had arrived. Vegeta gasped, coughing violently, rolling onto his side. He looked up at Goku with a mixture of fury and terror. What was that? Vegeta wheezed, wiping blood from his lip. That wasn't ki. That was judgment. Goku backed away, his back hitting the ruined wall. He looked at his hands.
What's that guy's wrist?
Smoking with
No, what are you doing?
he had almost crushed his best friend. Not with a technique, but with a thought. The whisper in his blood was louder now, purring with satisfaction. The prince is weak. You are the apex. Why do you tolerate the weak? Get away from me. Goku
What's
stared,
that?
his eyes darting around the room. The urge to destroy, to subjugate, to reshape the
Inside,
environment to his
inside,
will
inside.
was rising like fire.
Nice.
Vegeta, get everyone away! I can't stay here! Where are you going? Vegeta demanded.
Oh, you gotta film it or switch to Stitch and build your Stitch.
Goku said. His voice was
Okay, now
fragile,
that goes around.
the dual harmonics becoming more pronounced. Somewhere I can't hurt anyone.
Get the one side
He
around.
didn't use instant transmission. He didn't need
Fuck.
to lock onto a key
Oh, okay.
signature. He simply stepped forward, and space bent around him.
Ah,
The air
nice.
rippled like water, and Goku stepped
Give our wrist, please.
reality,
Thank you.
vanishing from the capsule core lab. He reappeared in the asteroid belt,
No.
surrounded by silence
rip.
and cold vacuum. But even here,
Rest,
the
rest.
silence
Thank you.
wasn't enough. He felt the planets of the solar system orbiting. He felt
He's
the
one shot.
gravitational pull of the sun. It was all so loud. The Dragon Key wanted to expand,
West side.
to fill the vacuum.
I got Spectral Blade.
In the dark, curling into a ball. He was the strongest warrior in the universe, the savior
Yeah,
of the
I want
multiverse,
Spectral Blade.
and he was
Oh,
cowering
is
in
it
the
wrong?
dark,
Fuck.
afraid that if he sneezed,
Damn.
he might accidentally delete the moon. Accept it, the voice commanded. You are the chosen sign. You are the bridge between the dust and the divine. I don't want to be a bridge. Goku whispered into the void,
Wait, man.
a tear freezing instantly on his cheek. I just want to fight. Then fight, the voice replied. paradise of eternal twilight, an indestructible grass, orbiting the very axis of the universe.
Where's the
It is
rest?
a place designed to endure eons. But as Goku fell from the dimensional rift, crashing into the emerald turf, the sacred world shuddered as if it had been struck by a hammer. He didn't land. He impacted. A crater, miles wide, instantly scarred the landscape. But it wasn't a crater of destruction, where the soil was displaced. It didn't burn and bloomed. Crystalline flowers, jagged and glowing with a radioactive gold light, sprouted instantly from the upturned earth. The Dragon Key was not just destroying, it was rewriting the environment, forcing the passive matter of the Kai world to evolve into something harder, sharper, and more divine. Shin, the Supreme Kai, dropped his teacup. It shattered on the
Yes.
ground. The sound impossibly loud in the sudden silence. Beside him, Elder Kai stood up, his wrinkled face losing all traces of its usual grumpy demeanor. That is an immortal? Elder Kai whispered, his voice trembling. Shin, do not approach him. That is not Son Goku. But ancestor, he's in pain! Shin stammered, sensing the chaotic storm of energy swirling in the crater. He is not in pain. Elder Kai barked, grabbing Shin's shoulder. He is leaking. That energy. It's the breath of Salam. It's the raw code of creation. If you touch it, you won't just die. You will be unmade. Down in the crater, Goku was on his hands and knees. He was wrenching, but nothing came up but wisps of golden smoke. His skin was burning, the orange of his gi bleaching white under the intensity of his own aura. The struggle for control was over. The dam had broken. The whisper was no longer a whisper. It was a roar. Expand! Goku threw his head back and screamed. A pillar of emerald light erupted from his body, piercing the purple sky of the Kai world. The clouds above swirled into a vortex. The very stars of the macrocosm seemingly dragged toward the beacon. And then, the sky split. There was no portal, no swirling warp. The fabric of the dimension simply unzipped, revealing a white void. From that void descended a figure, calm, petite, and terrifyingly absolute. The Grand Priest. He floated down slowly, his hands clasped behind his back, his halo shimmering with a cold, detached blue light. He did not look at the Kais. His violet eyes were locked onto the raging inferno of gold and green in the crater. Precarious, the Grand Priest said softly. His voice carried no anger, only the clinical detachment of a surgeon observing a tumor. The wish was granted, but the vessel was flawed. To think a mortal body could house the catalyst of Zalama, miscalculation on the cosmic scale. Goku stopped screaming. He slowly turned his head. The dragon instinct had taken hold. His hair stood up, not in the rigid spikes of Super Saiyan, but flowing and wild, as if underwater. It was a deep, shimmering black, frosted with tips of liquid gold. His eyes were no longer Saiyan eyes. They were the eyes of the dragon, vertical slits of glowing jade. Devoid of pupil, devoid of mercy. Priest, Goku said. The voice was dual-layered Goku's rough baritone overlaid with a metallic echoing rasp. Son Goku, the Grand Priest acknowledged, drifting closer. You are disrupting the equilibrium of the multiverse. That energy does not belong in a singular point. It must be returned to the ether. It is mine. Goku growled, clutching his chest. He was fighting the possession, trying to keep the dragon from answering, but the power was reacting to the threat. The Grand Priest represented order. The Dragon Key represented chaos. They were natural enemies. It is killing me, the Grand Priest stated. He raised one hand, index finger pointing forward. Allow me to excise it. It will be painless. You will cease to be, but the balance will be restored. It was a sentence of execution, delivered with a smile. Goku's survival instinct, the core of his Saiyan nature, snapped. He didn't think, he didn't plan, he exploded. The ground beneath Goku vaporized. He launched himself at the Grand Priest, moving faster than he had ever moved against Jiren. It wasn't speed, it was instantaneity. One moment he was on the ground, the next, his fist, wrapped in a swirling drill of emerald energy, was inches from the Grand Priest's face. Clang!
punch with a single finger. A shockwave of white and green energy flattened the forests of the sacred world for 1,000 miles. The Grand Priest's expression flickered. A microscopic frown crossed his brow. He hadn't just blocked it. He had been pushed back an inch. Interesting. The priest murmured. The integration is deeper than I thought. You are not just carrying the power. You are weaponizing it. Goku didn't let up. He roared, spinning in the air, unleashing a barrage of kicks and blasts. Each strike was heavy with the weight of reality manipulation. When he missed, space didn't just break, it twisted. Gravity reversed. Time stuttered. The Grand Priest parried effortlessly, his movements a blur of angelic grace, but he was on the defensive. He created a cage of Kachin blocks around Goku. Goku roared, and the Kachin turned into water. He fired a blast of erasure energy. Goku swatted in the sun, his hand coated in the golden dragon's aura, immune to the laws of destruction. Enough, the Grand Priest said. The playfulness vanished. The Grand Priest's aura flared a blinding, holy white light that washed out the colors of the world. He extended both hands. Angelic decree. Stasis. The air around Goku solidified. Time froze. The atoms in Goku's body were commanded to stop vibrating. It was the ultimate seal, a technique used to subdue rogue gods of destruction. Goku froze midstream, suspended in the amber of frozen time. The Grand Priest exhaled, lowering his hands. A pity. He was a remarkable specimen. Crack! The Grand Priest's eyes widened. A hairline fracture appeared in the air in front of Goku's frozen chest. Then another, then another. The stasis was cracking like cheap glass. Inside the frozen prison, Goku's emerald eyes flared. The dragon did not accept stasis. The dragon was the source of the balls that could undo any wish, any law, any rule. With a sound like a thunderclap, the stasis shattered. Goku burst free, but he was different now. The struggle against the angel seal had forced the dragon key to adapt again. The golden aura condensed, forming a translucent armored avatar around him. A phantom dragon head roaring over his own. I want fade! Goku bellowed. He brought his hands together, not for a Kamehameha, but for something older. He cupped his hands, and a sphere of black and green light formed a negative star. The Grand Priest realized the danger instantly. You fool! If you release that much density here, you will punch a hole through the floor of the dimension. Goku fired. The beam didn't travel. It simply connected. It struck the Grand Priest's barrier, and the collision of the two supreme energies, Angel and Dragon, created a singularity. A black hole, swirling with gold lightning, tore open in the sky of the sacred world. It wasn't sucking in matter. It was sucking in narrative. Light, sound, time. Everything was being pulled into the maw of the clash. The Grand Priest withstood the blast, his halo glowing furiously. But Goku was losing his tether. The recoil of the attack shattered his stance. He was thrown backward, not away from the singularity, but into it. Goku! Shin screamed, watching from the ruins of his temple. Goku tumbled into the rift, his body lived in the emerald fire. He locked eyes with the Grand Priest one last time. There was no anger in the Saiyan's eyes anymore. Only a terrifying, blank acceptance. The rift snapped shut. The wind died. The gold light faded. The sacred world was silent again, save for the hum of the Grand Priest's barrier fading away. Shin fell to his knees. Is he dead? The Grand Priest smoothed his tunic. Though his hands were shaking slightly a tremor, he quickly hid. He looked at the spot where the sky had healed. No, the Grand Priest said, his voice quiet. Death is a function of this reality. He has gone somewhere else. Somewhere where the rules of life and death do not apply. The priest looked up at the stars, his expression unreadable. He has gone to the source. There was no up. There was no down. There was only gold. Goku did not wake up, because he wasn't sure he had ever been asleep. One moment, he was burning in the friction of the Grand Priest's singularity. The next, he was floating in a suspension of absolute terrifying clarity. The pain was gone. The crushing weight of the Dragon Key that had been liquefying his bones was gone. In fact, his body felt weightless, transparent, as if he were made of light rather than flesh. He tried to turn, but movement here was not physical, it was conceptual. He He simply thought of a direction, and reality shifted around him. He was drifting in a sea of molten amber and noise. Silent shapes floated in the distance, obsidian spheres the size of galaxies, pulsating with a slow, rhythmic light. They were the hearts of the Super Dragon Balls, the energetic cores stripped of their physical shells. Am I dead? Goku asked. His voice did not echo. The sound was absorbed instantly by the golden fluid surrounding him. Death is a mechanism of the lower dimensions, a voice replied. It came from everywhere and nowhere. It sounded like the grinding of tectonic plates and the gentle rustle of paper simultaneously. Here, there is only the draft and the final piece. You, Saiyan, are currently a rough sketch. The golden mist in front of Goku swirled, condensing into a shape. It did not take the form of the colossal Super Shenron. Instead, the light coalesced into a humanoid silhouette, cloaked in robes that seemed to be woven from the fabric of nebulae. The figure had no face, only a pair of burning, vertical emerald slits where eyes shone. Goku floated upright, his instincts screaming that he was in the presence of something that made Beerus look like a house cat. I have been called many names by the transient things that live in the universes, the figure said, drifting closer. Salama, the dragon god, the architect, but names are limitations. I am the will that precedes the wish. Goku clenched his fists, expecting a fight, but his hands felt soft, uncalloused. You're the one who made the Super Dragon Balls! I am! Salama replied. The figure circled Goku, exactly like a sculptor inspecting a flawed block of marble. And you are the anomaly, the crack in the vase. My power was designed to facilitate the desires of the gods, to rewrite the tapestry of reality upon command. It was never intended to be housed within a biological engine, especially not one as crude as a sign. Crude, Goku bristled, his pride flaring. I've fought gods. I've broken my limits 1,000 times. Exactly, Salama said, stopping directly in front of Goku. The emerald eyes bored into his soul. That is why you survived. Do you know why the Dragon Key did not vaporize you instantly, son Goku? Goku stayed silent. Because Saiyans are the parasites of potential. Salama's statement, his tone devoid of insult, purely analytical. Your biology is unique in the multiverse. You do not have a ceiling. When you break, you do not shatter. You rebuild. You adapt. You are the only creatures in existence whose definition of self is fluid. Infinite adaptability. Salama raised a hand, and the golden void around them rippled. Images appeared in the midst: Goku fighting Frieza, Goku fighting Cell, Goku achieving Super Saiyan God, Goku mastering Ultra Instinct. I watched you, Salama continued. The Grand Priest believes order is the highest state of being. The angels seek neutrality. But you seek evolution. That is the nature of the dragon. To expand, to grow, to become more than what was defined. So, Goku looked at his hands, seeing the faint glimmer of gold under his skin. You're saying I can control this? That I can use this power? No, Salama said sharply. The golden sea darkened, turning a turbulent, stormy bronze. You cannot use this power. You are thinking like a warrior. A warrior uses a weapon. A warrior uses a technique. This is not a technique. This is authority. The figure leaned in, the pressure of his presence forcing Goku to float backward. To wield the dragon, you must stop fighting it. You have spent 3 days battling the energy in your veins, trying to suppress it, trying to mold it into a form like your Super Saiyan.